Okay. Good evening, everyone. Good evening. All right. So we're going to be talking about compassion. And I was on the way back, on the way, over here, I was thinking if I do a good job today talking about compassion, I'm going to be done. If you all understand how important it is, then I'm done. This is a way to say how much I believe in the importance of this theme, compassion. Let's start by saying that you want to build a stairway to heaven. Or if you want to buy, that's easier, right? You want to buy a stairway to heaven just like in that music. And you're going to need something that's going to support you all the way up, that's going to push you up. And of course, compassion is going to be a huge push, a huge thing that you all need to go up that ladder. And that's because it's going to deal with something that is a common denominator in our humanity. One thing that makes us, there must be a number of things that make us, put us at the same level, field level, but suffering is a common denominator in this, on earth. You all agree? So everybody has a bit of suffering to go through. Maybe not every day, maybe not so deep, maybe light, but we are here and we suffer in one way or the other, at least until we find a way or we learn how to minimize suffering. And compassion is what we need to minimize others' suffering and ours. And I thought that this theme, compassion, was really, really important that we spoke about. So, let's see what the gospel has to say about compassion. So it says that compassion is the virtue that draws you closer to the angels. Draws closer to the angels. It is the sister of charity, which also conducts you to God. So of course we have all heard about charity is the way to salvation, right? And compassion is absolutely necessary, along with humility, to do charity. So here the spirits were telling us through the gospel that this compassion is what draws us closer to God. What else does it say? It says, allow your hearts to be moved by compassion. This is a commandment, really, say. Us to allow our hearts to be moved by compassion before the spectacle of the miseries and suffering of our fellow creatures. Your tears will act as a balm on their wounds, and when shed out of sympathy, will restore their hope and resignation. So it's really, I want you to really live what we're going to say, what we're going to talk about tonight, with a very open heart, open mind. And you're going to feel the way I feel when I finish preparing this, which is, wow, I should know more about compassion. The world should know more about compassion. I asked them to get us started with that song that you all heard, What the World Needs Now is Love, because I thought it was very appropriate. And then it goes on saying, compassion and pity, when deeply felt, are acts of loving. Loving is devotion. Devotion is forgetfulness of self, which is altruism. And it is combined with abnegation in favor of those less fortunate than ourselves, which is the height of the virtue. Okay, so compassion and pity, they are not the same thing. But the pity, what it is pity. So, you feel pity about yourself and others. But the difference is that under compassion, Compassion involves taking action. So if compassion requires, to be compassionate require us to do something to help alleviate the suffering of others. Having pity, you say, oh, what a pity, and then move on. Okay, that's still good. But you didn't do anything. And if you want to be compassionate, then you're going to have to do something. And then you're going to be exercising compassion. And here when it says it's going to move us closer to God, and when it says compassion and pity, when deeply felt, and in all the definition that we're going to be talking about here, you're going to make a direct connection with the first commandment of God, which is in its second part, love one another. So how are you going to love one another? How are we going to love one another? How are you going to love your neighbor? It does involve compassion. So without compassion, you are not really meeting the commandment number 1. So compassion is the most appropriate sentiment for making mankind progress by dominating man, right? Selfishness and pride, which predisposes the soul towards humility, beneficence, and the loving of one another. So this is another very strong statement here. What is it? If you start to, for a minute, and think about what would have to happen in this world for this world to be better, for mankind to make a turn to the right direction, and we have more peace in this world, more fraternity, and so on. So you're going to come to this paragraph that's right from the gospel, which is we need compassion. Compassion is the thing that's going to help us help each other in a way that we are going to meet what we are here to meet, which is learn love and love one another. And predisposes the soul towards humility. So, meaning, when you think about selfishness and pride, those are the 2 major pillars of the wrong side of us, this downside of everything that's wrong, of evil. And compassion will combat that, will diminish that until it's done. And at the same time, it's going to bring what? Humility, that's going to replace selfishness and pride. And again, compassion is the vehicle. Never stifle this celestial emotion within your heart. Be fearful of being indifferent when you could help. What does it mean, never stifle? This, the way it's written in the gospel, it implies that we have compassion here. It's in our consciousness, of course, but metaphorically, we have compassion in our heart. But it's dormant until we use it, until we wake this up, until we develop it, until we put it into action. So then the gospel is saying, never stifle that celestial emotion right there. Put it to work. And when we, don't be fearful of being indifferent when you could help, or be fearful. If you are not doing that, if you are not using that capacity that we all have, then again we are not loving one another, and then we are not even ready to go to the second commandment of God, because we were stuck in the first. So compassion is the celestial precursor of charity. Think about it. So how are you going to do charity if you don't have any compassion? So the first thing we try to find out before we do charity is you want to know what you're doing. What is that for? What you are trying to help? Why do you need to do charity at all? And here again, compassion comes into play. Say, well, I think this is a good cause. I think we all should do this. I think that kid that is starving needs my help. So then you go on and do charity. Okay, so what is compassion? Okay, it's back here, I'm sorry. So what is compassion? Compassion, if we're going to look into the dictionary and see how what the word per se means, it means to suffer with. That's what compassion is. It's a combination of two Latin words that translates into suffer with. But, all right, and it means deep awareness of the suffering of another, coupled with wish to relieve it. So you have compassion is being aware that somebody is suffering. And then again, as I said, if you stop right there, that's pity. But then you do something about it, and then that's compassion. Another definition here, the wish that a being not suffer. This being could be one person, could be a group of people, could be your family, could be animals. It says a being. And usually with the feelings of warm-hearted concern, sympathy, love. Now here's what the gospel says. This is the same compassion that moves deep inside when you lay your eyes on the suffering of your fellow creatures, which compels you to extend a helping hand and which brings tears of sympathy to your eyes. So everybody here, let me see. So you know what compassion is, not because of my explanation, but at least we think we know what compassion is. But do you know how it feels? Do you know when you know it's compassion that you're feeling? So it could be something else. Sometimes it's very hard to say, well, this is compassion, or this is love, or this is this or that, anxiety. Okay, so tell me this. So this brings to you what kind of a feeling? Happiness, right? Okay, so you see something that's, that looks like that, or you see something that's joyful, something that's good, something that's funny, and then you feel something just like, the kind of a feeling you're feeling now by looking at that little face, right? Now tell me what you feel when you see this. That's tough. But what we're feeling right now is compassion. We don't want to spend too much time on that because compassion is sometimes hard. Okay, what is not compassion? Liking the other person, for example, I can like a lot somebody, but I'm not feeling compassion for him. So having compassion is not just I like you. You look good. And that's not compassion unless the person needs a lot of validation and say, wow, you look good today. So then you're doing some compassion. Otherwise, liking somebody else is not really compassion. Or thinking that the person's reactions are reasonable. So, yeah, I think he's acting reasonably. I have a lot of compassion for him because he's very reasonable. No, that's not compassion. You don't need to waive your rights as a way to do compassion. So compassion is still real even when you can't help, because it's not every time. That boy in Africa, it's very hard to help, that boy from, we just cannot call somebody over there and say, I want to do this or that, right? We just hope, we pray for him is another way to help. But it's, you can feel compassion and be compassionate even when you are absolutely unable to help. But in general, we need to link compassion with action. What about self-compassion? Because now, up until here, we're talking about compassion in general and compassion to others. But what about self-compassion? Self-compassion is simply, everything we discussed so far applied to us. Do we deserve compassion? Anybody here deserve self-compassion? Well, yes. And we're going to see why. But here is a better or more detailed definition of self-compassion, which is not judging yourself or allowing others to judge you, in the sense of, even if you want to judge me, that's your problem, it's not mine, so I know who I am. So not judging is a very important piece of compassion and self-compassion, as we're going to discuss later on in more details. So not blaming yourself, getting to know and accepting yourself, forgiving yourself, loving yourself, helping yourself overcome insecurities, respecting yourself, and protecting yourself. Those are, part or big part of what self-compassion is all about. So, and then what is not self-compassion? Whining, self-pity, stumbling in misery, like you just stay in misery as a way to perhaps punish yourself. So that's not compassion. Blaming yourself is not compassion. No, we're going to be talking about self-criticism in a minute. Trying to get sympathy from others or avoiding responsibility, those are not self-compassion. What are the benefits of self-compassion? Before I start to go down here these topics, it's interesting to see that compassion is a hot topic right now in science, in researches. There has been done a lot, and still a lot to come on researches about compassion, because somehow the world discovered that self-compassion is a great healing mechanism. Great healing mechanism. So there are models of therapy coming up with using compassion as a way for you to heal yourself, to feel better, to live a better life. But the benefits are, let's say, in this world, short term, it's going to protect you against stress. So how is that? It's going to protect me against stress. Well, think about you not loving yourself and you punishing yourself all the time. Every time we criticize ourselves, we are increasing our suffering. We are prolonging it. We are making it even more difficult for us to overcome. We get stressed to hell if we live on the basis of blaming self, complaining about self, self-criticizing in general. Recovery from painful experiences, when you can make something that happened to you today, you can make it last for a couple of days. But if with self-compassion, you can understand that you are human, that you have the right to make mistakes, or you prepared yourself as much as you could, but at the end of the day, boy, that was not enough. And I understand, if you have this understanding of yourself, and you look at your failures with compassion, then what you're giving, you're validating yourself and making your suffering less of a problem. Of course, without self-compassion, you run the risk of having a lower self-esteem as well. Because, say, something that happens to you, and you have this tendency to say, I told you, I was not able to do that. Everybody knows I couldn't do it. Now I'll try it again. So we become more optimistic because we start to believe in ourselves. If we learn how to be compassionate about ourselves, bring more happiness, less depression, less anger. This is what we ask other, if you think about you were counseling somebody, you would try to get somebody to understand that he's human. He's, everything happens. We are here to suffer. But perhaps that's part of his karma. Perhaps this is something that actually came for his own good. We've got to use that for ourselves too. It's not only true for the other 7 billion people, it's true to us too. So what blocks self-compassion sometimes? Fears that will make you weak, complacent. Because it's like again, it's the self-punishment thing. So if you are complacent with yourself, or if you have too much self-compassion, too much self-love, you protect yourself too much, you kind of allowing yourself to make the same mistake again. So that's the kind of a thought that may be behind the lack of self-compassion. We also have this habit of self-criticism. If something goes wrong in our hands, and of course, I guess maybe if we don't have anybody else to blame, but if when you are home looking at the mirror, you are self-criticizing you. You say, well, actually, I could have done much better. I failed. And then, of course, if you don't, because of this habit, you pay no attention to self-compassion. You don't ever think about, okay, in reality, yes, I could have done much better, but I have to admit that the task was much bigger this time, or, the journey was a lot more difficult. So then you start creating a situation where you're not going to suffer more than you have to, or perhaps not even suffer, and you're going to use that as a self-guidance for your next experiment. And that's the ideal situation. Thinking that if you have self-compassion, that's going to make you selfish, the me thing, which is another nonsense. The self-compassion is only to prepare you to do better. That's all it is. Or feeling that you don't deserve it. Well, for the kind of thing I did, I don't deserve self-compassion. I don't deserve compassion. I don't deserve anything. I really, really don't deserve anything. I was really silly. So self-compassion is the opposite. Make us stronger. Make us feel that we are capable of doing, if we put some more effort perhaps next time. That the things that happen in life, sometimes they are bound to happen. Perhaps there is a lesson. There's something for us to learn. And it says here supports healthy ambition, so you can dream bigger, okay? If you have a better understanding, if you don't have this fear of your own criticism. So if you don't have this fear of feeling remorse, then you become more courageous. You become more aggressive, perhaps in your goals, and more even better prepared next time. So the costs of self-criticism. So I found this little thing in there. So that's us, right? There's this little guy with those two things inside of our mind saying, "You suck," yeah. And then they say, "You're right," right? No, sometimes we do that. I say, "Oh, wait a minute." After that lecture about self-compassion, I'm going to get this guy out of there, because the cost of keeping him in there is just absurd. It's making me feel bad, more stressed, It's bad for, whatever is bad for my mind is bad for my physical and my mental health, of course. Low self-esteem. I'm going to be more sensitive to criticism from others as well. If I feel, I like that. If I say, well, he's right, and then I'm in a terrible situation, so vulnerable. And of course, one thing, comes with the other. So because of you feeling yourself so vulnerable, and then you say, well, I'm incapable. I should not take any other risk. I should not do this. I should not do that. Okay. The root for compassion is self-compassion. When we said before, self-compassion is applying compassion to ourselves. So Pema Grodan she's alive, and she's got a lot of books about compassion and the likes. And then there's Buddha that said, if your compassion does not include yourself, then it's not complete. There's no way we can be compassionate to the rest of the world if we don't learn how to be compassionate about ourselves and with ourselves. Correct? So self-compassion starts at home, this home, right? And then we can go outside. Okay, we're going to bring a big concept here today. This word, equanimity, it's not new. It's not been created just for this presentation. It's a big, big, big concept that's not very much discussed anywhere. If I go around here and say, have you ever heard about the word equanimity? Unless you have read people like Joana de Angelis, you're going to say, no, what is it? Well, what is equanimity? I want you to keep that new word in your mind, but not just the word, the concept of equanimity. It's very, very essential that you do that if you want to be compassionate, if you want to excel yourself or grow a lot as far as compassion is concerned. So equanimity. First of all, let's have as a background here the understanding that life is full of surprises, and that could be pleasant, could be unpleasant, could be heartfelt, neutral, and it's going to come to us sometimes whether we invited some bad news to come toward us or not. So Buddha used to call it first darts. Nobody is exempt, nobody is protected against those first darts because of the type of world we live in, because of our mission, because what we're here for. We are here to face the difficulties that will allow us to learn from in a way that we're going to grow morally, spiritually, intellectually, right? So then, it could be a flat tire in the morning. It doesn't have to be something much worse than that, but that's the first dart. And there's a lot. Every day, perhaps we're getting some first darts. So life goes like this, and then we're saying here, experiences have this mix of tones. Equanimity is like a big space of peaceful well-being that lets this variety of tones flow through the mind without triggering the reactive red zone. Okay, we are going to digest that, don't worry. Right? So then, you are in this sea of, all these waves, right? And if you just go with the waves, think about yourself. You're going to be, let's say, here is anxiety, and here's depression, here's anxiety, and here's depression. So you go like this. And then, you were not prepared to do anything, not even to love. Now, we need equanimity, which is this shock absorber that's going to, how it says here, allow these variations to flow through, right, without us being devastated by them. Right? Okay. Joanna de Angelis, in the book Iluminação Interior, has one chapter about equanimity. And it's wonderful. Well, that whole book is wonderful. I told you guys last time I came over here that if I had money, I would buy a ton of those books and give one for every one of you. I think everybody should do that, but I don't have money to do that. But you can buy it, hopefully. According to Joanna de Angelis, here is what equanimity is all about. To be able to love indistinctly, widen the horizons of the emotion toward all beings, involving all those that are good and evil, gentle or ungrateful, and that represents an aspiration that culminates in living a life with plenitude. So, here is the background of this thing here. You want to be compassionate. Now, you need that sea of tranquility, or that control of your mind. What you don't need is emotional instability when you are trying to help somebody. And you're not even, that when you are not in your mind, in the best of your mind, then you are not in the best of your emotions, and then you are not prepared to do what we're supposed to do, which is love one another. So equanimity is the thing, is the theme here that get us in the right place. Now, let's go a little further. Still, Joanna de Angelis, establish a connection with all types of people in a way that good prevails. Okay. The thing about compassion is we have this tendency to have a lot of compassion for those that we know, those that we care for, those that, perhaps spouses and stuff. Kids, your neighbor, Marisa, right? But what about the rest of the world? What about those that are suffering somewhere? So equanimity will put us in a situation where we see everybody as somebody just like us, same molecules, same type, same needs. And then we're ready to do compassion in a scale much bigger than just being compassionate with those close to you. It's like when you do charity, right? We can do charity at home, of course. And we can teach charity to our kids and so on and so forth. Is that enough? Is that what we're here for? No. We are here to share what we've got at the bigger scale we can get. Keep a state of equilibrium in our daily struggles should be a goal to be reached by all, so that the inner harmony do not get disorganized during either external storms or calm weather. Right, so then that's the thing. There is something that I'm not going to take your time with, but there's this thing called duck meditation. Have you ever heard about duck meditation? It has to do with the duck that is, who is, whatever, in the, on the ocean, right? And he's sitting there in the ocean. But you know what the ocean, how it goes, right? It goes like that. And the duck has no idea how big the ocean is, how deep it is. And it's still there. Okay? And then it's called, the duck meditation that, in the sense here for this particular exercise that we need to, like the duck, sit on the ocean of waves and go with it in a way that we keep pace with it and be serene and be prepared, as if that was normal, that was part of it. It's part of the ocean, and the ocean is where we live in this case. So equanimity offers the perfect guidance for how to treat others and how to react in the face of adversity, always keeping the same state of inner harmony. So how many of us, okay, are able today, and we're not supposed to in our present level, but at least we can have some of those. How many of those can stay at the same level of harmony, same level of emotional stability, no matter what's happening? If outside or inside, conflicts, bad news, losses, loss of somebody, loss of a job, loss of a dog, whatever that is. So it's very difficult. But it all comes down to this. It's like repeating Jesus' words. Do not do to others what we would like them to do to us. Okay, so that's equanimity. But there's another thing about equanimity that I want to say. Remember that thing, the first darts that comes against us all the time? It could be loss of the job or just a flat tire, just, forgot my wallet. And what happens? Whenever something adverse, how big that is, happens to you, you have a reaction. That reaction could be, like the flat tire. That reaction could be, oh my God, I'm not going to get in, to my job on time today. So that is a reaction. Then there's the reaction to the reaction. The reaction to the reaction is, you say, it only happens to me. The whole world conspires against me. I have this bad luck. Everything that I do ends up like this. So that's the reaction to the reaction. Your first reaction was, I'm not going to be on time. Second reaction is, I'm worthless. That second reaction is not needed if you have self-compassion. So what is going to prevent you from having the second reaction, the reaction to the reaction, is this stability, this mental stability that's called equanimity. Big thing for us to, when we have time before we retire, to read about and perhaps get proficient about it. But hopefully you have time to do it right now, starting today. How can I get to a state where I am not going to have from now on reaction to the reaction, so that I have the mental capability, the stability, emotional stability to deal with the flat tire as it is. The tire is flat. I have AAA. I'm going to phone my boss. I'm going to be 15 minutes late. Actually, it's good because I had that terrible meeting at 8 o'clock, so I'm going to miss some of that. So, and then you stop right there. But we can't right now. We just go on and say, it only happens to me. There must be something wrong with me. The reaction to the reaction is this lack of emotional stability when you most need it. So, there's this guy, Dalai Lama, and we're talking about equanimity. At some point, we're talking about equanimity also is something that applies in big scale. It's loving each other, whoever that is, the way it is. Love each other without judgment. Without judgment. And then in this book that was launched this year in June by Daniel Goleman, called A Force for Good. This guy, Daniel Goleman, spent several months with Dalai Lama, learning about what Dalai Lama would then say is his vision for the world, for humanity. It came up with a number of principles that I'm going to present to you if we have time toward the end of this. But one page in that book, I actually prefer to photograph it and bring it to you, says the following. When Dalai Lama met President Nelson Mandela, soon after apartheid ended, he was deeply impressed by Mandela's lack of resentment toward those who had put him in prison for so long. So he befriended all the people around him in jail to a point where they had to change guards from time to time. And he was 27 years in prison for reasons, and he just stayed there and didn't hate anybody, didn't have any resentment. And after he had been elected for president, he even brought some of the guards to his table for dinner. So that's an example of what we're talking about, equanimity. Look at this guy, Einstein. Our task must be to free ourselves by widening our circle of compassion to embrace all living creatures. These big minds, they must love a lot those that are around him, but they have no boundaries. They love the world. So the most powerful relationship you ever have is the relationship with yourself. And that's why self-compassion is very important. So it's the greatest, the biggest, the more, it could be even the more complicated sometimes, but it's the most important relationship in your life is with yourself. And let's imagine then there is this substance that has been irritating you all around the clock. And then let's imagine there is a healing cream that helps you get rid of that irritation. So that is suffering. The substance is the suffering, and the balm is the self-compassion. I'm going to start to rush a little bit. What are some of the compassion exercises? Okay, so how do we start? Open your heart is the first one. Talk to people, smile to others, take time to listen. Those cheese quotes on Facebook will not make it, so don't go that direction. Okay? You have to look in the eyes and feel the other. Compassion involves empathy, which is me feeling what you are feeling. Okay? Walking in someone else's shoes. Before you react, take a step back and try to understand what happened. So why is he saying that? What is the message behind the message? Because we are very good listening to the words, but we don't listen to sentiments. Understand what may have motivated others to have that behavior, discuss that. Is it an expression of love or a call for love? Some people have this funny expression for love by throwing a shoe on you, right? Okay. Be surprised with the energy level you experience when putting yourself in someone else's shoes. So when you start to walk in someone else's shoes, and then you can say, oh, I can see what you're saying, because now I understand where you're coming from. And there is a say, not here in the Spiritist Center, but it says, where attention goes, energy flows. Where attention goes, energy flows. So if your attention is towards somebody that needs help, that's how your energy is going to flow. So if your attention is because of compassion, and then what you're going to do is you're going to throw him a lot of positive energy, some sort of energy that's going to help him somehow. What else? Think back to a time when you were given the right to be. right? Think back to a time when somebody came to you and had to comfort you, showed you a lot of compassion. How was that? How did you feel? Did you feel good? Did you feel validated? Did you feel understood? And then you have to think about the opposite. When you are going to give compassion to someone, that's what, again, where you put your attention to is that where the energy is going to flow. So when you're giving, when you're showing your compassion, you're going to make that other person feeling as good as you did when you were comforted. So cultivating self-compassion, this psychologist, Kristen Neff, she's PhD and has a wonderful book that's called Self-Compassion, Stop Beating Yourself Up and Leave Insecurity Behind. That's what she loves to do, talk about compassion, okay? And she says that compassion consists of three components. One is self-kindness, common humanity, and mindfulness. Real quick, because we're running out of time, self-kindness is stop the constant self-judgment and the disparaging internal commentary that most of us have come to see as normal. So for us, it's very normal. It comes to a point where it's auto-criticize, ourselves. It's just the norm. We never say, "Wow, did not know I was that good." We say, "Wow, boy, I could have done a lot better. I need to learn more. I need to do this. I need to do that." Common humanity. So common humanity is recognizing that common human, when we are humans and we are subject to the same environment, same things, same first darts, same unfortunate things that we sometimes have to face with. We are not, the world is not conspiring against any of us in particular. We are here subject to the same kind of bad weather and good weather. And mindfulness, this is particularly important, okay? It is for you to accept what is right now. So the tire is flat, so I got a flat tire. That is what is. There's nothing, if I'm not mindful of what I'm looking at, what I'm feeling, then I go to that second reaction, which is no good to us because it's going to push us down. I should have changed that tire a year ago. I'm really very relapsed. Everybody's right when they tell me I'm this or that. So you lost yourself, you lost the focus. That's not mindfulness. Being mindful is being present with what is at that particular moment. And that applies to everything we do. Okay, I promised you to the Dalai Lama thing on the evolution of humanity, how he sees it. The reason I'm bringing this up is because there will be 2 slides about it. I think there are 8. Free the mind and the heart is the first step he recommends us if we are if the humanity is to go where it should go. So being calm, clear, and kind. So that has a lot to do with this equanimity concept. And the second one is embody compassion. And then I put a circle around compassion. The third one is educate the heart. He's talking about compassionate ethic. Then he's talking about opposing justice. And he's talking about compassion again. So for Dalai Lama, the word compassion is real big. Real big. And then another one, choose human economics, compassionate economics. Let's understand the numbers from a people standpoint, not from the bankers standpoint. Okay, we're not going to have time for this, but we, of course, if you wonder how do I know if I'm a compassionate or not, I'm going to just take you through a few and then we'll close. When others feel bad, and so this is you asking yourself, when others feel bad, like stressed, in pain, ill, sad, worried, I usually have warm thoughts and feelings toward them. True or false? Or if you want to go from 1 to 10, where do you rate yourself? How do you rate yourself? I'm quite aware of my feelings, including feelings of stress, pain, illness, sadness. Remember the mindfulness, understanding, reading your sentiments. How good are you at that? I often have kind thoughts and feelings toward myself. This is self-compassion. How would you rate yourself? When I feel bad, I usually have warm thoughts and feelings toward myself like I would toward a friend who felt bad. It's a big one, right? How do I rate that? And then, of course, there are others. And we're going to skip that for now. And to bring us to a close, I thought these figures, or these pictures could help us a little bit. See the Pope, and this is recent, just embracing, just comforting, just showing his love and compassion to somebody like that, with a lot of issues, physical issues. Mother Teresa, we do not need guns and bombs to bring peace. We need love and compassion. That's Mother Teresa. Use your voice for kindness, your ears for compassion, your hands for charity, your mind for truth, and your heart for love. So, have you all a great weekend. Thank you very much.